Consider our wealth of natural resources, ideal geographical location, manageable landscape, and fertile soil, abundant land, and a small population. Consider also that we speak the world's leading language, have multiple diverse cultures, and we are a warm and welcoming people. What then is preventing us from creating the Guyana that we all desire? What if Guyana lived up to its potential?
Thanks for joining us once more. This is the Face in the Future television program. I'm your usual hostess, Carrie Ann. But actually, this is our 6th episode. But not to worry if this is the first time you're tuning in. You can stay tuned until the end of the program and find out more about the Face in the Future campaign and also how you can see our previous episode. In today's program, we're deviating from our usual segments. Tiadi would normally take us across the country to various communities in our Community Challenge program, where they're raising awareness about, things that affect them in their community. And then we have our inquisitive young people researching various topics which may affect them in their everyday life. But today we're actually dedicating the entire program to the Face in the Future conference on electoral reform. This was held in January. In our last program, we showed you a glimpse of what some of the participants had to say, but today we want to go into more detail. FDF started our first workshops using this open space methodology. We had our young people discussing various issues that affect them and life in Guyana generally. Then we later went on to the adults who spoke more about the potential of our country's resources. We also had forums with our 3 major political parties on policing reform and also the selection of their candidates for their party lists. So now that the elections are over, what is the way forward? We're going to show you some of what various representatives from non-governmental organizations and religious societies, what they thought was needed for electoral reform in Guyana. So take a look. We're here at the Face in the Future forum discussion. We have a number of civic organizations present, and they are here to discuss the way our elections are structured and the way our elections are conducted. What are their recommendations for the next steps, and help us to draft out the timetable for our Face in the Future and what we'd like to do for electoral reform. As persons came in, they went straight to the board and suggested issues relating to electoral reform they wanted to discuss. After settling, the audience was briefed by the convener for the event, Mr. Mike McCormack. Let's listen to some of what he had to say.
Facing the Future is hoping that out of this day, we will have identified issues which need to be addressed if we are going to have a modern electoral system, some sense of what the interest is amongst our organizations in putting some energy into achieving that system. And the third thing would be, later in the day we're having a panel of the parties discussing their parliamentary priorities with respect to electoral reform. The elections in November created for the first time a situation in which we have an election result that does not exclude half of the population for the next 5 years from influencing political decisions. Now we have a situation that changes that. It's a fragile arrangement at the moment, but all of the parties in Parliament have real power.
Now that you have an idea of what the Face in the Future conference was about, let's go through some of the issues that were suggested by the participants. The president should be elected on his or her own right. Elections should be free of fear and issues based. Qualifications of candidates and members of parliament. Continuous registration. Crossing the floor in parliament, including the entire elections committee to witness the counting of the SOPs. the provision of birth certificates to more Amerindians so that they are able to register to vote, increased consultation with the youth of Guyana, an independent elections commission, accreditation of citizens to be able to observe the elections process.
We went into the open space method for the workshop. Persons were asked to vote for the 2 issues that they would like to be involved in for a group discussion. These votes were then tallied and a timetable was constructed for 2 rounds of discussion on the issues which secured the most number of votes.
I'll just go through the rules of discussion for today. The first rule is what we call the law of 2 feet. If you find that you are not contributing anything or you're not learning anything from the group, please feel free to get up and move to another group. Don't sit there and be bored. You can move to another group that is more productive for you. That's the first rule. The second rule is that the person that suggested the topic, we would like that person to start the discussion in the group. So we'll have 10 groups placed. And if you have suggested a topic, please at least be the first person in the group to start that discussion. Right? Thirdly, remember, we don't want any lectures. Some of you might have been lecturers before or teachers, but we don't want any lectures or any one person taking on the responsibility to do all the talking in the group. It is a group discussion, so everyone should have that opportunity to voice their opinion.
The day was set up like an open marketplace, and hence persons were free to move from group to group throughout the rounds. Everyone then consulted the timetable and went to the groups to discuss the topics they were most interested in. Let's listen to some of what went on in the different discussions.
I feel that perhaps we can follow the example of Jamaica and Trinidad with respect to the police commission. They have actually gone for a non-national.
That's what they started for. Then you still have another section that remain at home. That's according to the results. But in real terms, we know that much larger percent of them stay at home and they now go to vote.
Yes, sir, in my village alone, over 90 people were on the those who was on the list in 2006, they were not there.
Public in the sense that the electorate must know where you get your money from, the amount you get from who.
I don't think inherently the incentives are there to move to issues. We stay in our camps and try to justify why we stay in there.
Devoid of politics, with the understanding that persons have their own personal views, then that's understood. What are the specific guidelines for choosing these persons?
If you read the Commonwealth Observer Report, one of the things they said in it was in effect that we have to find some way of disposing of this commission and appointing an independent, non-political commission. They say this time and time again.
Very often the perception is about Guyanese who reside within Guyana. Very often perception. Right? But then there are other options that are available. We can look at Guyanese in the diaspora who are not tainted as we want to say.
One part of the Constitution says they shouldn't get involved in day-to-day things, but they can oversee appointments or employment in the commission. But to me, that's the last thing they should be involved in.
You may be living in Camberville now, but coming up to election time, you've gone to somewhere else, wherein you will have to vote at another place, right? No, they wouldn't know.
But that's not enough. 30 seconds of advert on television can't quite, if you like, provide the information they need.
So when GCOM goes to that database, they know within Campbellville, they have 100 persons living with disabilities and what disability they have.
It's the younger generation who are going to change that, because for most of them they don't care about race. It's not about race anymore. It's about jobs, it's about progress, it's about, education, it's about...
Guyanese and even young people are selfish. It's always about me and you and I and I. I'm afraid of this. I wouldn't do this. I should do this. It's never we and us.
When we decide to say that the political parties seem to have these strongholds and so on and so on, that is recognizing the truth. So how do we deal with it? We cannot decide to surrender the space to the political parties.
Political parties should be registered and legally accountable, that they should be open to the public, they should have financial statements, they should account for all monies taken in.
There must be something to show what level or what amount of constituency they represent there.
So you can't have 3 members of the political party?
No, and say you're a political party or from one region and say, or if it's one region, let that be transparent and this is from one region only.
So when people come to the forum, they understand that they're coming to do public service. And I think if you try to change that mentality, you start creating a whole different perspective.
The availability is better because she can still be there. People can call them easily when not going away. The culture of the area, the representatives from it is more effective functioning.
Cattle farming vis-a-vis planting of rice in some area, and the guys are fearful that a lot of the grazing land will now be taken by people who are planting rice, and they got dialogue going on right now. But if you'll understand the issues, and you could become an effective mediator now to say, okay, this is what has to happen.
So the FTF Forum had 2 sessions of discussions, and we concluded the first half of the day taking recommendations for the next steps for the FTF grouping to consider, mostly with respect to prioritizing our timetable of issues to address electoral reform. For the second half of the day, representatives from the 3 major political parties were invited, mainly to assess the parliamentary party's priority with respect to electoral reform. The PPPC declined the invitation, and the APNU's designated representative did not turn up. The AFC was represented by their leader, Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, and their party supporter, Mr. Nigel Hughes, presented the party's position.
People in Guyana quite often talk about going back to days when X, Y, and Z happened. I don't think personally that there's any going back. I don't think in Guyana we've ever actually had a time and period in our independent history, and certainly not in our colonial history, when the people have actually been in control of the politicians. I don't think we've ever had it. I think we've aspired to it, but I don't think personally that we've ever had it. And again, I make it clear that I speak here personally and not on behalf of the AFC. If you took a poll in Guyana and you were to ask people whether they considered the judiciary to be independent, I think more than 70% of the population, whether or not based on fact, would come back and say to you, we have concerns about the independence of the judiciary. But certainly in terms of electoral reforms, definitely more MPs that are elected by constituencies and their constituency base. The manner of the election should not be first past the post, should be PR. We should definitely have regional MPs elected by the regions and responsible to the regions. And coming with that, and very, very essential, is the fact that the regions must have economic independence. They shouldn't be depending on the executive in Georgetown to decide what part of the budget they get.
We in Guyana, I rather suspect, are in the state we are because lots of the talented people do not pay attention to their politics. The one occasion we have for participation is election spending. And at election spending, the debates are not generally as profound as you would normally get with a wider participation during the longer duration of the 5-year period. And so indeed I support what is called the civil society getting more involved.
So in essence, we now know that political parties may not pursue aggressive electoral reform. Civil society may have to do that, and the mechanism we have at hand is the referendum. So we have our work cut out for us. Thank you very much.
The FTF Forum was a reflection of broad-based opinion because it is rooted in the fact that participants came from Regions 1 through 6 and Region 10, and representatives also came from religious organizations, ethnic bodies, disability organizations, trade unions, women, youth, and student bodies, along with a variety of non-governmental organizations, welfare, and professional associations. After the forum discussions, FTF was able to speak with some of the participants who shared their concerns.
The most important topic that really got my attention, I think, surrounded ethnicity and race and politics, especially as it relates to the elections processing and how we should strive and work to eliminate that aspect of our decision making. We should make our decisions based on issues rather than race.
Funds for the campaigning, right? And I feel strongly that they were indeed misusing the funds, and I think we should get a better system in place. So next time each party that are contesting for election could have actually the equal amounts, so they could campaign equally.
People are frustrated with the current electoral system. I think they feel it doesn't represent their views and what they want from the process of choosing the political parties. I've heard from a lot of young people who feel that their views are not represented simply because often the process is taken over by the elders, so to speak, and that they are seen as inexperienced and not having sufficient voice.
It is indeed important that we discuss as early as the school levels. Persons within the schools understand the importance of election, why we do have election, what are elections for. Among other things, we also talked about our voters program, sensitizing the general public about the elections process.
Persons with disabilities given that right to go and cast their vote and know that they have done what they think is right. Like each and every one of us, GCOM has persons like us, and it's a system that there will always be flaws, nothing is perfect. But coming out from this, we should have a very good GCOM and a very good electoral process in the future.
An independent elections commission. I think that I really think that we need to move away from the way the elections commission was set up.
I would like to see where we move towards an issue-based campaign where issues, solutions and approaches are discussed rather than what we saw in the last elections.
Visibility vis-a-vis monies that are spent campaigning, regional candidates that are elected, that they should come from their region, that they should be locally elected. There are lots of issues that I would hope would be put on the table, and that out of this our resolutions would be sent off to Parliament and that they would be acted upon. Otherwise our exercise would be futile.
The recommendations put forward by this grouping are calling for serious reform of the electoral system. In this respect, promoting accountability from political parties and demands for an independent elections commission must go hand in hand with creating that political space for vigorous civic organizations. For more information about the Face in the Future initiative, please visit the website www.faceinthefuture.com.gy. Out of the Face in the Future conference, we were able to draw several conclusions. Persons from the various organizations considered an independent elections commission to be a pivotal step towards modernizing our entire electoral system. But also they suggested that electoral reform on a whole should be a priority on our parliamentary agenda. Other key suggestions included freedom of speech, youth and ethnicity, access to public life for persons living with disabilities, the effects of incumbency, and also making political parties legally accountable. Probably the most widespread demand of participants in the conference was to have members of parliament who represent constituencies in such a manner that they are held accountable to the electorate. They demanded a system in which the voting power can remove members of parliament who probably are not working in their interests or show no interest in the issues or issues that may affect their constituency. So we have our work cut out for us in getting this information to the parliamentarians. But as voting citizens, our opinions could be taken into account. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have with you today. I do hope that you enjoyed our program, and we kept with the aim of the program to keep our audience informed and educated. In today's program, we went into an in-depth account of our Facing the Future conference held in late January on electoral reform. The recommendations put forward by the different sectors of society are calling for serious reform of our electoral system if we are to really move Guyana forward. Just a little update on our signature campaign. We have now over 7,500 signatures, so that was a good job. Persons still have outstanding signature sheets, so we're appealing for you to bring them in so that we can carry up our petition. If you're living in Bartica, I'm appealing for you to get in contact with Kamal. She lives in Arcade Street. She has a shop with a red door. She has signature sheets, so get in contact with her and get signed up. Other persons, you can visit our website, www.facingthefuture.com.gy, and sign on to our petition. Encourage friends and family to sign on once they're above 16 years old. And remember, you can only sign once. Remember, if you have any ideas or comments or any particular topic you'd like to share, you can get in contact with FTF directly by sending us an email at facingthefuture2011@gmail.com or give us a call. Or you can leave a suggestion on our Facebook page. So thank you for staying tuned, and see you until next time.